decided that I would rack my brain for all of the possible mistakes that I could come up with. And I came up with 4 different categories of mistakes. So today we are going to cover food and nutrition mistakes that you could possibly making that could keep you from your weight loss goals. Hey mamas, Alexandria here, 35-year-old toddler mom, therapist, and gym rat. See, I've adjusted to being 35. I did it. I lost nearly 40 pounds postpartum and it changed my life. So now my goal is to help other mamas and other women to be the best version of themselves and to meet their goals. Like I said, today we are going to cover food and nutrition mistakes that you might be making that you're not realizing that you're making that could be keeping you from losing the weight that you're hoping to lose. And some of these I feel like are a little more obvious and some of these are a little sneakier. So I'll be interested to hear from you guys which ones you used to make or which ones you think, oh crap, I'm making that one now. So let me know down in a comment because I'm very curious. I know I made most of these at one point or another in my previous failed attempts to lose weight. So let's go. Number 1, drinking your calories. This one I feel like gets talked about a lot now, which I'm glad because I think it's really important and can be really easy to underestimate when we think about weight loss, just how many calories a lot of drinks have that we don't even really consider because we're not getting full from having the coffee or the soda or whatever. And I'm talking like full, like sugared sodas. Those things are like absurd from a calorie standpoint. And depending on what your calorie budget looks like, you could be blowing out your calorie budget and not even know it. Again, I won't spend too much time on this one because I feel like this one is pretty well known. But drinking your calories can be a huge pitfall in trying to be successful losing weight, especially if you're like, but I'm eating all these great foods and I'm like doing the things I think I'm supposed to be doing. Why am I not losing weight? Well, are you drinking your calories? Are you going to Starbucks and drinking those every single day? Because good gracious, there are more calorie efficient ways that you can drink Starbucks coffee, certainly. But as a general rule, the Starbucks drinks, very high calorie, just generally, unless you're drinking like black coffee. But your frappuccinos, your cappuccinos, all that sort of stuff, it's a lot. So again, the importance of tracking your calories. That pivots me to number 2, which is not knowing how much you're eating. I think there's this conception that like if you're tracking your calories that like you're obsessed with food or that you have some sort of like eating disorder. And while I do think you have to be careful, I am a mental health provider and I do understand that sometimes tracking food can become obsessive and I can see how that could potentially pivot you to an ED. But I don't think just tracking is the reason that people will develop eating disorders. And I don't think there's anything wrong with tracking your calories. And for the most part, unless you're just really, really good at guesstimating, you're probably going to need to track at some point, maybe not all the time, but you're going to need to track your calories at some point. Like I'll give you myself as an example. So when I first started, I did track, so when I first started losing weight before, I was guesstimating, which I think a lot of people do. And in fact, Noom says that the average person who guesses at how many calories they're eating under guesses by 500 to 700 calories. That's a lot of calories. Like that's a lot of calories to be underestimating. And especially if you're trying to lose weight, if you're eating 500 or 600 calories more than you think you're eating, well, no wonder you're not losing any weight. And so the importance of tracking really is just to show you what a proper portion is supposed to look like, especially if you live in the United States. And I don't know about other countries in the world. I don't know if they're as guilty of this as we are, but like we, especially at like restaurants and stuff, overportion the heck out of everything. So if you are going off of like what you think is a third of a cup, or if you think a fourth of a cup, see it, like measure it out at least a couple of times. If you're not wanting to calculate all the time, again, you do you. But if you're not wanting to track consistently, at least do it a little while so that you can see what food quantities actually look like. For me, once I joined Noom, that was one of the things that I started doing is consistently measuring my food. And right now I'm currently living in a deficit. You'll see that video later, but I'm trying to meet some new weight loss goals. And so I am in a deficit again. And for that, I have restarted measuring more consistently. But while I've been in sort of my rest maintenance period, I haven't been measuring as much and I haven't been gaining weight. And the reason is because I know what that portion is supposed to look like. I've done it enough that like I can visualize it. Does that make sense? I'm spending entirely too much time on this. I can tell. I can like feel myself talking too much. My point is, at least for a little while, try tracking your calories, not to an obsessive level, but for a knowledge standpoint, like so you can see how much is actually going into your body, because knowledge is power, and knowing and understanding what this looks like is really, really crucial. And if you don't want to use like a measuring cup, I've seen several people, and I will try to link a post or an article or something about how you use your hand to guesstimate, and so you don't have to like have measuring utensils with you. I will try to link that somewhere in the description bar. So take a look for that. Editing Alexandria will put that somewhere for you. Cool, cool. And if you love this kind of content, I would love if you would come and join us non-judgy mom friends. I would love to come and be your non-judgy mom friend who comes along and helps you to meet your goals. So if you love this kind of content, if you're finding it helpful and useful, please make sure that you subscribe and say hello in the comments. I want to say hi to you. I want to talk to you. I want to be your friend. So please come and say hello. Tell me you're new. Tell me you're not new. Whatever you want to say. I would love to hear from you. The next one is not drinking enough water. Water is such a pivotal thing. I mean, we are in the era of the Stanley Cup, the faux Stanley Cup, like all the cups. And, you know, just all the cups. Also, if you haven't put frozen cherries in your water as like your ice cubes, you're missing out. Just trust me. Just do it. Just do it. I'm telling you. Be like Nike and just do it. Hey, wait, aren't I wearing Nike today? Yeah, I'm wearing Nike today. It's fine. I'm in a weird mood. I can tell. Anyway, sorry, friends. Let's see. Not drinking enough water. Yes. So not drinking enough water. And the challenge is that our body, it's hard for us to distinguish a hunger cue from a thirst cue. And so sometimes you're actually thirsty and not hungry. So it's important that you adequately drink water from a digestion standpoint, but also from a like, am I actually even hungry perspective? Like you might surprise yourself. Now, this is not always true. This is not exclusively true. I want to be clear. Sometimes you are hungry and you should eat, but you're not always hungry. Sometimes you might be confusing hydration and need to drink some water with being hungry. So sometimes you just try some water first and wait a few minutes, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm actually not hungry after all. I just needed some water. So something to note. The next one, not enough fiber. Again, this is another like dietary thing. My husband and I were talking about this yesterday, or was it yesterday, the day before? It doesn't matter. We were talking about this the other day because I was like, I know we need fiber, but then I couldn't remember like why I had this on my list. So we looked it up again for the 800th time. And fiber is important for digestion, but it's also important from a like fullness cues perspective. When you're not getting enough fiber, you may not feel full as quickly. It's kind of like the same umbrella as the next one that we're going to talk about. But fiber is really important for digestion, and also it's important for like keeping you full and satiated for a longer period of time. And I won't get into all the details because it gets complicated, but like the idea of like things when they have soluble fiber in them, it modifies the calories and basically like, I don't know how to explain it in a way that makes any sense, but it's important to have it's important to have fiber in your diet. So just trust me. This is just one of the those trust me things. All right, moving on. The next one is not getting enough protein. If you've been here a while, you're like, Alexandria, please shut up about this. And I'm really sorry. I will not, and I never will. And that's also what makes the fiber one super important too, is because protein is harder to digest in the body, which is part of the reason why it's great for muscle growth and also what keeps you full longer. But you also need that fiber in order to properly digest said protein. So it's a nice little like balancing act of making sure that you're getting proper amount of both. So for protein intake, the estimation is basically 0.08 grams per pound of body weight if you are at your like ideal body weight. So I generally, as a general rule for me and like my size, is I shoot for 100 grams of protein a day. That's just like an average for me. And I think honestly, everyone that's like an adult person could probably benefit from at least 100 grams. But if you're not sure, there's plenty of like calculators out there that you can utilize. But For me, as a, female who exercises pretty consistently, I shoot for 100 grams of protein. I try to get as much of that as I can in like chicken or yogurts or like whole foods that contain protein, but you can certainly supplement some protein shakes, some protein bars, things like that if you need to. And I almost always have at least a protein shake or a protein bar during the day. So to help sort of supplement that, I have some favorites. If you're curious, let me know and I can tell them to you, or we can do a video about it, whatever. But protein's really important for both muscle growth and for keeping you full. So make sure you're getting enough protein. Don't just assume that 1,500 calories is 1,500 calories, because it's not. And if, let's say, that is your budget, and again, I'm making up a number. That's not me saying you should only eat 1,500 calories. I want to be clear. I don't want anybody to get confused. I'm not saying just eat 1,500 calories. But what I'm saying is, if you are eating 1,500 calories, make sure that you're getting enough protein in there to stay more full. Okay, cool. I'm going to shut up. I swear. The next one is snacking in between meals. So snacking. Okay, so let's backtrack for a second. So when I was first trying to lose weight, I went on this like super restrictive, like frequent small meal thing. And I won't say anything more about like who I got it from or anything like that, because I don't want to talk crap. But I basically went and did like a frequent small meal thing. And basically it felt like I was in the kitchen all day, every day. Like literally I couldn't get out of the kitchen because I was never full. And so for me, and everyone's different and everybody likes to eat in a different way. But for me, I find that if I can get to like at least semi-full or like a fullness. I was actually just watching Adam Rate Fitness. If you don't follow him on Instagram, you should go give him a follow. He's great. Anyway, he also has a YouTube channel too. I'll see if I can find it and link it. Anyway, but he was basically talking about like the scale of fullness from like 0 being like you really need to eat like right this very second to 10 being like over full. And so if you're living somewhere in like the middle of that scale, like that, 5 to 7, that's like a nice like balance. And so if you can get to a 5 to 7-ish fullness on the fullness scale, you don't spend so much time thinking about food. I felt like when I was doing like the frequent small meals, I was constantly snacking. Like I was always in the kitchen for something because it was time to eat again, because I didn't eat enough when I sat down the first time. And so then I felt like I was always eating. And the more time I spend in the kitchen, the more likely I am to grab something that's going to blow out my budget, not because I can't have it, but because I haven't accommodated for it. And it's just a lot. So make sure that you're getting at least a level of fullness in each of your meals so that you don't have to feel like you're snacking consistently throughout the day. Because when you snack consistently throughout the day, what ends up happening is you end up with a bunch of like random empty calories, and it makes it more difficult to track what you're eating. Because you're like, oh, well, I'll just have a couple of chips, or I'll have a couple of this or a couple of that. And then all of a sudden there's like 300 or 400 calories that are like semi-unaccounted for. And that, believe it or not, can keep you from your goal. Let's talk about cheat days. So cheat days are one of those they're one of those things that I think people are finally sort of starting to come around to, but I see this all the time. We're like, well, I'll just take a cheat day. And so if you have cheat days, that tells me one of two things. One, you're either on a super restrictive diet and you've cut out a bunch of stuff, or you're probably blowing out your calorie budget at least one day a week, and it's probably screwing up your goals for the week. So when you think about a calorie budget, I think, there used to be this sort of idea of like a daily calorie budget, and that's still sort of how I think about it because I'm tracking things. And so I like sort it out per day. But a lot of what I've been reading and hearing and seeing from a lot of other folks is the notion of like basically putting it into a weekly goal as opposed to a daily goal. And so if you're taking whatever your calorie budget is and dividing that by 7, and you're spreading it across those 7 days, as opposed to thinking about it in a singular day format. I don't really have a full understanding of like the differentiation between the two, but if you want to know, I can find out. Anyway, but my point is if you look at it from that like week-long perspective, if you do that, like let's say Sunday, you do that blows out your entire calorie budget that you've allotted for the entire week. And so it puts you behind the 8 ball in goal setting moving forward. But the other piece is that if you feel like you need a cheat day, that means you've likely over restricted on things that are important to you, and also means it's probably not a sustainable way to lose or stay losing weight. Like if you only eat pasta on a cheat day, or you only eat cake on a cheat day, or whatever, and that's how you've categorized it, you're likely not going to meet your weight loss goals because what you've done is you've over restricted, and that's just not sustainable. Like that doesn't feel good to feel like we can't eat foods that we want to eat, and eventually we just give up. I mean, I certainly would. And I think that was part of my problem when I talked about a little bit ago when I was doing like the frequent small meals. I wasn't eating anything that tasted any good. Everything tasted like garbage. It's no wonder I quit. I was skinny, sure. I actually found those pictures the other day. I'll pop them in here if I can find them. I mean, I was skinny, I was thin, whatever, but I also wasn't really eating like much at all. And I was always hungry. I was probably cranky because that's what I would get when I eat. All right, I'm talking too long. I'm gonna be quiet. Moving on, Alexandria. Not eating breakfast. Again, I think I went over this one not that long ago as well, but not eating breakfast. Again, not eating breakfast doesn't actually have much in the way to do with the eating breakfast piece itself. Our body doesn't really understand or fully comprehend like breakfast, lunch, dinner. Our brains understand it, but like bodily speaking, that doesn't really matter. But what does matter is that by setting yourself off with eating some sort of breakfast, you're setting yourself up for a positive decision making process throughout the day. And so it's called decision fatigue. And basically all that means is that by the time you've gotten to the end of your day, and if you work night shift, the end of your day and the start of your day may be completely different times from what I'm describing, but you haven't made nearly as many decisions when you first woken up in the morning as you have at like, I don't know, 9 or 10 p.m. at night, or even like at dinner time, right? And that's the time that we're more likely to go and snack and make decisions that we don't like the consequences of later on down the line. So it's really important that we remember when we are like having breakfast, that's the time where we're going to be kind of setting the tone for the day. Like if we're just like rushing out the door and grabbing a Starbucks, or rushing out the door and, grabbing a Pop-Tart or whatever. There's nothing wrong with Pop-Tarts or Starbucks. But if you're setting the tone for a good day and you're not eating a healthy, well-balanced breakfast that's got some high protein in it, you're going to be full an hour later, and then you've set yourself up to have to modify your decisions moving forward for the rest of the day. So that's the importance of breakfast. It's twofold, really. It's a fullness and well-balanced thing, but also a decision thing of if I'm setting my good intentions for the day, I start at breakfast. That is going to do it for all of the nutrition and food related mistakes. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, and YouTube should be recommending something else to you they think you will love, and I hope you love it too. And there will be more mistake videos coming because I still have 3 categories to go. So until next time, bye guys.